And welcome to another exciting edition of the Premier League Zone, proudly brought to you by 𝐿𝐥𝐵𝑒𝑡. My name is Anthony Ajulu, and this is your number one family radio station, Inspiration FM. After an eventful, maybe bizarre weekend, we're here to do a post-mortem on everything we saw in England last weekend. It wasn't just the Premier League, there were matches in the FA Cup as well, and everything provided some drama of some sort throughout the weekend. We're doing a post-mortem on all of that. But our main focus today will be on Antonio Conte and his bizarre rant after Tottenham were held 3-3 by Southampton. We'll talk about the other matches a little here and there, but we'll play that rant on the show, and then we'll hear from the guys in the studio what they thought about it, and then do a little discussion about it as well. As always, I'm not alone in the studio, but everyone is here. 𝐿𝐥𝐻𝐒 is here as well. Guys, how are you doing this morning? How are you doing this morning? Feeling alright?
Oh, well, I'm trying to be.
Dion?
Well, feeling good though.
You good?
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, that's good to know. Let's just go on a break, take a word from our sponsor, 𝐿𝐥𝐵𝑒𝑡, and then we'll come back. We'll get the show started properly. Alright, welcome back to the show. Let's just get started properly. Let's give you the results from this past weekend. In the Premier League, we saw Arsenal claim a 4-1 victory over Crystal Palace. Chelsea and Everton shared the spoils. 2-2 that one ended. Aston Villa claimed a 3-0 victory over Bournemouth. Brentford played out a 1-1 draw with Leicester City. Southampton and Tottenham both played out a 3-3 draw. That will form the bulk of our conversation today. We'll come back to that in a bit. Wolverhampton Wanderers were beaten at home by Leeds United 4-2. That one ended. Newcastle claimed a 2-1 victory away at Nottingham Forest on Friday. And then in the FA Cup, we saw Manchester United claim a 3-1 victory over Fulham. Brighton and Hove Albion were 5-0 winners over Grimsby Town. Sheffield United are through to the semi-final of the FA Cup 3-2. They defeated fellow championship side Blackburn Rovers. And of course, Manchester City. It wasn't a fantastic return to the Etihad for Vincent Kompany. His Burnley side were hammered, bruised, battered, and destroyed by Manchester City. 6-0 that one ended, and a hat-trick for Erling Haaland and 2 goals as well for Julian Alvarez in that one. Let's just start from the FA Cup actually. Let's just do some conversations around the FA Cup. Let's start with Manchester United against Fulham. Dion, let me start with you actually. Difficult game at the end of the day, but United, I wouldn't want to say fortunate, because the red card was a red card actually. The handball was a handball, and then everything that followed just sent everything into chaos at the end of the day. But United, doesn't matter how you do it, then to the semi-final of the FA Cup.
Yeah, I like the way you ended that statement. So it doesn't matter how you do it, because I would say this: Fulham were the better side, to be honest, from start to finish. Even though the game was happening at Old Trafford, Fulham looked like the side more intent to move through to the next stage of the competition. And for United, I don't know if it's fatigue or whatever happened, but you could see that the players had somewhat slowed down the tempo of the play, and the absence of some players. I mean, Casemiro just started serving his 4-match suspension, so he couldn't feature in that one. The fluidity in play wasn't really there, and Fulham, could at some point they took advantage of it with Mitrovic getting on the score sheet. But again, Fulham were the architects of their own failure or capitulation or whatever word I was going to use, because a lot of the things, bar the red card to Willian, the antics from Mitrovic and also Marco Silva were completely unnecessary, completely uncalled for, and to be honest, they just left Manchester United, with a golden opportunity after, Mitrovic was sent off, and also the coach was asked to leave there because he was also handed his marching orders, and United took advantage of that. Bruno Fernandes, 2 goals, and Sabitzer off the bench, got 1-2. 3-1 United at Wembley. Semi-final, Brighton, going to be tough opponents, but then again the Reds keep marching on and are well in contention to probably add another trophy to their already impressive season. Alright,
semi-final fixtures look like this. Brighton will take on Manchester United, like Gideon mentioned, and then Manchester City will take on Sheffield United. But are we set for an all-Manchester final?
We could have a possible upset in the semis, and that's the game between Brighton and United. This United side, I think fatigue is gradually creeping in, and it's becoming so evident. And if they do face a very fresh Brighton side who are riding in confidence as well at the moment, I think we might have a Brighton City FA Cup final. All
right, we'll see what happens there. All right, let's go for another break. Take a word from 𝐿𝐥𝐵𝑒𝑡, and then we'll come back. We'll focus on the Premier League, and then we'll focus mainly on Antonio Conte and his problems at Tottenham Hotspur. Guys, the man said a lot. First of all, first things first. Does he have a point? He said there's no fire in this Spurs team. He said he's looking comparing Spurs with last season. They're actually worse this season. Says every time there's always excuses for the players, always trying to give them an alibi and excuses that he wasn't going to have it anymore. He says maybe because they are used to it. They don't like to play for anything. They don't like to, when there's some pressure or some stress, they just capitulate under that pressure and all of that. Says for 20 years they've not won a title. That's the way it is at Tottenham Hotspur, and something has to change. There's no fight, there's no desire, no fire. If something doesn't change, they can change all the managers they want, it will still be the same thing. Does he have a point, buddy?
Huge points. And these are the conversations we've had, as journalists, how Spurs don't really have the ambition in them to actually win titles. Yes, a lot of times they do try to push, but it gets to a certain point, and we've actually tagged them perennial chokers.
Yes.
And if you want to have a manager like Conte, you've got to provide the sort of player he wants.
Yep.
Conte is not going to come in and build your team for the next 10 years. He's a mercenary.
Yep.
Like the likes of Mourinho and what of you. Yes, see, every manager that's coached Spurs can't be wrong. Even as far as Harry Redknapp, when they asked to be supported with really good players, and that didn't happen. So maybe it begins with the management. Maybe they need to start seeing themselves as that club that wants to go out there and win laurels. When you see the teams around you, example London, you look at how Arsenal have done it in the last few seasons. You look at Chelsea, have the metamorphosed from that team that didn't even know anything close to a title and had to start winning titles in 50 years. At Tottenham Spurs, yes, desire is there, but again, they haven't really gone for the right sort of players to help Antonio Conte.
Dion, the man says there's no fight in this Tottenham team. Yes, he's a serial winner and all of that, but he's not showing any fight himself because he's coming out to complain. It's your job to bring out the best out of them. Do the best you can out of these players. Yes, the players are not maybe title winning material, but surely these players should have seen out that win against Southampton. These players should be doing better than they are.
I mean, it's a tricky one, to be honest, because at this same point last season, which is game week 28, Spurs had 2 points more than they already have. So I wouldn't say they were doing bad. So I couldn't understand. I mean, when I heard Antonio Conte's answer, technically on paper, look, I mean, the football has been particularly horrible. It's displeasing to the eye. But at this point last season, they were on 51 points. They are currently on 49 points. 2 points, less than what they had last time. And they had scored a little more goals. So it's not particularly like a case of doom and gloom with this Spurs side. But you can see the coach said a lot. And these are the things that, a lot of the things he said are things that we can actually see whenever we watch Spurs. But again, I would say this, it is up to the coach to ensure that there's a certain degree of decorum, because we've seen last season there were leaks with Manchester United. It completely affected the squad. I would digress a bit. Bayern Munich complained over the weekend that someone is leaking their tactics from their dressing room. Things like that will upset. Now you're going to throw all the players under the bus. How are they going to want to give their all with the remaining game?
The question was he pushed to this? Because
he was pushed to this. It's obvious because it looked very personal. It looked very, very personal.
So he's been getting frustrated by certain things around Spurs.
It was a case of, oh look, let me save myself before the entire jury decides to, just declare me guilty. And that is what it looked like when Antonio Conte. It just seemed like a man who was just meant to take himself out of the situation and say, oh look, the team is bad, but then again, I'm not the fault of it. I'm not the cause, because that's what it looks like. He's exonerating himself from the problems, but at the end of the day, he's the coach. He's the coach. Players were brought in January. Players were brought last season.
Now those players he has one of the most
prolific scorers in the league in world football right now in 𝐈𝐍𝐿. 𝐈𝐍𝐿 has scored over 20 goals. Son is still scoring those two. What are we saying?
But I want to say something. Yes. I have a question for you actually.
Sincerely, this Tottenham team, Mourinho can be wrong, and at this point in time as well, Conte can be wrong. It's all about mentality. And when the manager says, I want to see the fire, I want to see the burning desire to get things done. He must have seen a lot. He must have endured a lot. And seriously, we said this several times, these players are not pulling their weight enough. And at the end of the day, all the blame comes on the table of the manager. And even during that 9 minutes rant, there was some point where Conte said, I'm also part of this team.
Yes, he did.
It's not as if I'm trying to say, okay, I'm not at fault.
Like I said, we have to cut it the way we could cut it.
So I think it all boils down to the mentality, really. Okay, these players are so comfortable.
So what's the way forward now? How do they? what has to change at Spurs for them to come to the level that all these other managers, including Mourinho and Antonio Conte, have demanded over the years?
First, they need to accept the fact that they're a small club.
Okay.
You might have so much money and not have taste. You understand? So they need to bring in a manager who understands the philosophy at which Spurs are working with.
Okay.
Maybe a manager in the mode of Pochettino, who is ready to work with any material you've offered him.
To be fair, their best success was under Pochettino.
Exactly.
So the Champions League.
There's no talk about, I need a set of player. Pochettino would work with anything is offered. So maybe they need to go back to that humble beginning. A manager that's ready to build the team, like what we're seeing with the likes of Brighton and the rest of them.
Yeah.
Maybe after 5 years, they can now start thinking of, okay, let's now contend properly.
Has his position become untenable, Antonio Conte? He has to leave.
He has to leave because at this point, I mean, if you're an employer and you know one of your employees decided to go rant publicly, trust me, you need to take a lot of preventive measures to ensure that it doesn't repeat itself. So, and there've been a lot of questions about his stay at the club, but I think he has all but confirmed his exit at the end of the season.
He hasn't signed the contract.
He hasn't signed the contract.
He hasn't signed the end of the season.
He hasn't signed the contract, and there are some internal rumblings over there, behind closed doors over there at Spurs. So, I think he just all but confirmed he would be leaving at the end of the season because I don't see a future with him in Spurs. The man is already disgruntled with the job ahead of him. I mean, and at this point again, before it to get to a point whereby he also loses whatever vision he had at the start of the season, I think it's best for everyone if he just walks away.
Buddy.
Maybe for the first time in the history of Tottenham Hotspurs, we might just have Daniel Levy maybe bowing to the desires of the manager. That is what I feel.
You know, it will be interesting to see. Interesting times. This week should be very interesting.
Very, very.
At Tottenham Hotspur. We'll be tracking everything and giving you details of everything that goes down. But anyway, let's just go on another break from 1xBet, and then when we come back, we'll open the phone lines and hear your thoughts on this matter involving Tottenham Hotspur and Antonio Conte.